the previous segment, we discussed the basic realities of the lives of ancient foragers. What did they eat? What did they do most of the day? And so forth. In this segment, I would like to take a closer look at their mental and spiritual lives. This is much more difficult to do. It is far harder to know what people believe than what people eat, because it's especially when you don't have any writing or much evidence. Most scholars nevertheless agree that animistic beliefs were common among ancient foragers and was the basis for most of their religions and worldview. This word animism, again, it comes from a Latin word, the Latin word anima, which means soul or spirit. Animism is the belief that the world is full of animated beings, all of whom can communicate with one another directly. Animists believe that almost every place, every animal, every plant, and every natural phenomenon has awareness, has a mind, has feelings and emotions. For example, animists may believe that the big rock at the top of the hill has feelings, desires, and needs. The rock might be angry about something that people did, or rejoice over some other action and be very happy about it. The rock might ask people to do something, or people might come to the rock and ask the rock to do something for them. Humans can not only address the rock, but make all kinds of bargains with the rock. We'll do this, and you in exchange will help us in some other endeavor. Not only the rock, the big rock, but also, say, the oak tree at the bottom of the hill, what may be considered by animists as an animated being. And so is the stream flowing below the hill, and the spring in the forest clearing, and the bushes growing around the stream, and so forth and so on. And also, of course, all the animal, all the wolves and all the mice and all the crows that come to the spring to drink, they are all animated beings. They all have emotions and desires, and humans can communicate directly with all of them. In the animist world, objects and living things are not the only animated beings. There are also immaterial entities. All kinds of fairies and demons and angels, they also inhabit the world. So it's not only the rocks and the springs and the trees and the wolves, but the world is also full of all kinds of immaterial beings, immaterial anima, which you can talk with, communicate with, and make all kinds of deal with. Animists, very importantly, believe that there is no barrier between humans and other beings. We believe, most of us believe that animals have emotions and have minds, but we can't talk with them directly. Animists do believe that you can communicate directly in speech or song or dance or ceremony with the wolves and with the clouds and with the rivers and with the rocks. A hunter that goes hunting deer may address the herd of deer and ask that one of them be willing to sacrifice itself and to be hunted. If the hunt succeeds, the hunter may ask the forgiveness of the dead animal so that the spirit of the dead animal won't be angry and won't cause damage later on to the hunter. If somebody in the band falls sick, so the shaman, the person who is most proficient in talking with spirits, the shaman may contact the spirit who caused the sickness and try to either pacify it or to scare it away. Go away from this person and so he can be healthy again. If the spirit does not cooperate, then the shaman may ask for help from other spirits. What characterizes all these acts of communication, and this differentiates animism from all kinds of later religions, is that the entities which you address, which you communicate with, are local beings. They are a particular tree or rock or wolf or cloud or demon. They are not great gods. It's It's not like the case later on with the religions of the great gods, that you have a big god who is responsible for many, many trees and rocks and wolves. But in the case of animism, the main communication is with these particular entities in your own valley, in your own neighborhood, not with great gods who live somewhere above the clouds. Just as, according to animists, there is no barrier between humans and other beings, we can speak directly with the trees and with the rocks and with the elephants. So neither is there a strict hierarchy in the world. Non-human entities like trees or elephants, they do not exist simply to provide for our needs and desires. Humans are not above them. They are in a similar position to them. Similarly, animists usually do not give much importance to all-powerful gods who run the entire world as they wish. The world of animists does not revolve around humans and does not revolve around any other particular group of beings like the great gods. It revolves around communication between a lot of entities, which all of them have relatively similar status in the system. The trees and the rocks and humans and mice, they are not in a hierarchy, but they all share in a community of entities, which is the world. So this is animism. This is a basic animist belief. But it should be emphasized that animism is not a specific religion. It is a generic name. It's an umbrella name for thousands upon thousands of very, very different religions and cults and beliefs. What makes all of these different cults and religion animist is a common core approach to the world and to man's place in the world. The idea that there is no hierarchy and there is direct communication with all the other entities, this is the core of animism. But aside from these core beliefs, there could be very big differences between the religion of one animist group and the religion or beliefs of another animist group. It's like today, or not only today, in the last thousands of years, there are many groups of people who had a shared common belief in great gods. So all of them, you can call them theists. Theists, it's come from theos, which is God, not in Latin, but in Greek. Theos is God. So you can call many, many different religions theist religions, like Greek pagan religion and Hindu religion and Islam and Judaism and so forth. They are all theist religions. They all believe in great gods. They all approach the world with the basic understanding that there is a hierarchy in the world in which the single god or the great gods are at the top, and humans and other entities are subject to them. And it would be true to say that most cultures, after the agricultural revolution in the last thousands of years, that most cultures were theists. They believed in great gods. But this does not tell us much about the particulars, about what they actually believed and practiced in their day-to-day lives. Because under this general heading of believing in great gods, you can find Jewish rabbis from 18th century Poland. They believed in a great God. And you find Protestants and Puritans from the 17th century. They also believed in a great God. And you find Aztec priests from 15th century Mexico. They believed in great gods. And you find Muslim Sufi mystics from, say, 12th century Iran. They also believed in a great God. And you have Viking warriors from 10th century Scandinavia who believe in great gods. And you have Roman legionnaires and Chinese bureaucrats and Egyptian peasants, and they all believe in great gods. So they are all theists. But it doesn't really tell us much about the more detailed aspects of their beliefs and practices, just to know that they all believe in a great God. And there are huge differences, as everybody knows, between all the religions that I mentioned in the last few minutes. The differences between the beliefs and practices of different groups of animists might have been just as big as the differences between Islam and ancient Greek religion. So both Islam and ancient Greek religion, they both believe in great gods, one god or many gods, but we all know that there are huge differences. So similarly, 30,000 years ago, two foraging bands might both have been animists, believing in this basic idea of the world being suffused by all kinds of entities that have emotions and feelings and can communicate with one another. But the differences between them could have been just as great as the differences between Islam and ancient pagan Greek religion. The religious experience, therefore, of the world tens of thousands of years ago might have been very diverse, and there might have been not only different religions, but also religious controversies, reform movements, and religious revolutions. Like for many years people believed one thing, and suddenly came a very charismatic leader and started convincing them to believe in a different kind of religion. Can we then say anything more specific about the beliefs of particular bands? Not just that all bands or most bands are probably animist, but can we say anything more specific about the actual beliefs of this band or that band? We have some pieces of evidence, like cave art and jewelry and statues, but unfortunately, in almost all cases, this is not enough evidence to reconstruct from it the worldview, the detailed worldview of people who lived 20 or 30,000 years ago. Because again, most of the evidence we have about their religions come from a very limited number of statues and paintings, and we don't have any written evidence, so we can't be sure how to interpret these statues and these cave paintings. There are scholars who give detailed accounts of what ancient foragers believed. You can find articles and books who tell you in page after page very many details about it. But most of these accounts are a good source of information for the prejudices of modern scholars who impose their own prejudices on the evidence. They are, unfortunately, a poor source of information about what our ancestors actually believed. Take, for example, this cave painting, which you can now see, very famous one. It was found in the Lascaux cave in France, and it was made by people who lived there about 15 or 20,000 years ago. What exactly do you see in the painting, and what is its meaning? Take a minute or two to think, to just look at the painting and think what is being depicted and what is the meaning of the painting. Well, some scholars argue that what you see in this painting is a man with the head of a bird and an erect penis being killed by a bison. And under the man, you see another bird. This is what you see in the painting according to some scholars. These scholars also argue that the bird symbolizes the soul, that the people who painted this cave art 20,000 years ago, they believed in souls, and they represented the soul with the shape of a bird. And what you see in the painting is actually the soul being released from the body at the moment of death. This is why it goes through the head, and this is why the head is the head of a bird, because the soul is emerging from the head at the moment of death and being released to its next incarnation. If so, according to these scholars, the picture that you see does not depict a prosaic hunting accident, but rather it depicts the passage from this world to the next world, or from this life to the next life. Now, this is a very, very interesting and imaginative theory, but we have absolutely no way of knowing whether any of these speculations are true. we are not even sure what we see in the picture, let alone being sure about the meaning. Like the idea that the bird symbolizes the soul, we have absolutely no idea, no evidence for this. We don't have any, say, written record from people who lived 20,000 years ago that they wrote, we think that the soul is like a bird or something like that. Similarly, now look at this statue, also very famous statue. It's called the Venus of Willendorf. This is the name that scientists gave it. It was found near the village of Willendorf in Austria. And this was made by people who lived in what is today Austria about 25,000 years ago. And many similar statues that looked a bit like this were found all over Europe and Russia and in other places, made from all kinds of materials like clay and stone and ivory. Now, some scholars, when they look at these statues, they say that what we see in them is a depiction of some great mother goddess or some great earth goddess, and that these statues are proof that ancient foragers believed in the predominance of the maternal or feminine element, that they worshipped femininity and women, and that they actually lived in matriarchal societies headed by women. Because they say we find all these statues of women figurine, of female figurine, but we don't find any similar statues of men. So this is one very famous theory based just on these statues that people 20, 30,000 years ago in Austria and other places, they lived in matriarchal societies and they believed in great mother figures as their dominant religious leaders. But there are other explanations for these statues which are exactly the opposite. Some scholars, looking at exactly the same statues, say that these statues are actually proof of a very chauvinistic and patriarchal society. These statues are a relic to the male obsession with the female body and with female fertility. They represent an ancient attempt by men to control female sexuality in a society dominated by men. Still, other scholars argue that this statue has nothing to do with religion, it's simply pornography. It's ancient pornography, that's all. Now, who is right in this argument? We don't know. We don't have any records from 20,000 years ago of the people who made these statues or who worshipped or used these statues about what they had in mind when they created them and when they used them. Now take a look at this third example of a really amazing cave art. It's not really a painting, it's a collection of handprints that hunter-gatherers who lived 9,000 years ago in Argentina made this amazing collection of hand imprints on the walls of the cave, which is therefore known today as the Cave of the Hands. Now, it looks as if these long dead hands are reaching towards us from within the rock. And this is therefore one of the most moving relics of ancient forager society, of the ancient forager world. But what is the meaning? Why did they made this giant wall full of handprints of different people? We know it's different people. It's not one artist who went and put his hand in all kinds of places on the rock, because there are differences, and there are very interesting studies about the composition of this ancient society based on these handprints, because you can see who made the handprints, men or women, old people or young people. So it's a very interesting and moving relic to this ancient world. But what is the meaning behind it? What kind of beliefs caused people to make all the effort? We just don't know. There are again all kinds of theories, but we have no hard evidence which enables us to say this theory is correct and this theory is wrong. Instead of building all those big theories on the basis of very flimsy evidence, Perhaps the best course of action is simply to be frank and to admit that we have only a very hazy notion about the religions of ancient foragers. We assume that they had religions, and we think that probably most of them were animists, but that's about as much as we can be certain of. We don't know what spirits in particular they worshipped. We don't know what festivals they celebrated. We don't know what kind of taboos and rules they observed. So I'm afraid that this segment may have been very disappointing to some of you. You wanted to hear details about the first religions of our ancestors, and what you got is only a very few extremely general speculations. But that's all we have. As I noted several times already in previous lessons, in science, if you don't know something, the best thing to do is simply to say, I don't know. It's much better than to start constructing all kinds of fanciful theories and tales based on very little real evidence, because it just causes confusion. In the next segment, we will take a look at another aspect of ancient life, at the political world of our ancestor, and we'll try to see what was the politics like, and I'm afraid that we will be encountering similar difficulties with understanding ancient politics and ancient warfare as we've encountered now in trying to understand ancient religion.